Okay, I'd like to call to order the May 26, 2015 meeting of the Millcreek Township Supervisors. We'll begin with a pledge of allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, is there any public comment on agenda items other than development or rezoning applications? Hearing none, we'll move on to approval of minutes. We have before us the May 12th, 2015 meeting minutes. If there's no additions or corrections, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
I can't second, I wasn't here.
I'll second. Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next, we have approval of bills. We have before us the Millcreek Township Sewer Revenue bills of May 26th, as well as the Township bills of May 26th. If there's no additions or corrections to the bills, I'll entertain a motion.
I so move.
I'll second it.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next, we have public hearing on proposed subdivision and land development plans. First one is a replot of the residue of Lot 14 Royal Acres subdivision, a small subdivision plan. A subdivision plan to replot the residue of Lot 14 Royal Acres subdivision to eliminate a setback line along an abandoned right-of-way located along the east line of Lancaster Road, south of Oakley Drive, in Tract 350, index number 612-014. Is there anyone here tonight to speak on behalf of the replot? Sir, if you come up, give us your name and address, and please sign in.
Hello, my name's Charles Weary, 547 Wilshire Road. I work with Wellco Surveying, and like I said, we're doing they want to change the 30-foot building line to a 7-foot side yard line on the road. Any
Okay.
questions?
Okay, is there any questions from the board?
No.
None for me.
Okay, is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the replat? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the replat? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion from the board?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the replot of the residue of Lot 14 Royal Acres subdivision.
I'll second that.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next is the Millcreek Township Sewer Department, a land development plan. A land development plan to show a proposed 3,240 square foot storage building located along the west line of Caughey Road, north of West 26th Street in Tract 19, index number 357-015. Mr. Morris.
This is a land development plan to construct a pole barn west of 23rd and Caughey on an existing concrete pad that was used as a helicopter pad. It'll be used by the sewer department for cold storage. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here to speak either in favor of or in opposition to the land development plan? Hearing none, is there a motion from the board?
Yeah, I'll move to approve that land development plan for the Millcreek Sewer Department.
I'll second that.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next is Whispering Woods Estate, subdivision number 7A, a subdivision reapproval. It was originally approved September 23rd, 2008. The builder proposes building an already approved subdivision in phases, beginning with 7A. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of that subdivision?
Yes, Mike Sanford, 4721 Atlantic Avenue, here on behalf of the developer. Basically, it's exactly like you described. He's interested in receiving final plan approval for section 7A. Previously approved, so it's beyond the 90 days. We'd like that pre-approved, but then also it's in phases. So we're here tonight looking for approval of phase 7A.
Okay.
That's it? I don't
Mr.
see it.
Morris, was there anything as far as this?
No, the original Phase 7 had 42 lots, and this only has 9 of the 42 lots as Phase 7A.
Any questions from the board?
So, Rick, the original approval was Whispering Woods Estates number 7,
Correct.
and that was with 42 lots.
Yes.
So you'll still have the red, or whatever, 42 minus 7? Or how many?
Yes.
Minus 9?
Well, minus 9, right.
Okay.
Okay, and this is on the eastern half, and the drainage is going to Phase 6. The other remaining 33 lots drain the other way.
I mean, just for the record, we did, the developer asked for a deferral in terms of the financial security for those off-site improvements, the Simmerly Road Bridge and stuff. Rick, help me out here, okay? Because there's nothing listed here.
Yes.
And there is an agreement somewhere that I think confirms the fact of when it will be paid and how it will be paid, and it will be secured.
Correct.
Not that it was ever mentioned or anything in connection with this.
That's correct.
Is there any other questions from the board?
No.
Is there a motion to approve the phasing of this subdivision?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the phasing, approving subdivision 7A reapproval.
I'll second that.
Mr. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Is there anyone here, I'm sorry, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the phasing? Well, I guess the vote stands. Thank you. Announcement of bids and quotations received.
We got the resolution.
Oh, resolution. Resolution 2015-R-13. A resolution to assess the cost of street lighting upon various properties abutting on streets in various subdivisions within the township of Millcreek. Evan, do you have anything on that?
Well, basically, this is a resolution that's adopted every year, and it's a little later than usual this year because Penelec was a little slow in providing the information. But this gives the formal approval to impose assessments that provide that those benefiting from street lighting, living within a certain distance of a street light, pay a proportionate share that defrays the total cost that Penelec imposes on the township as the collection agent.
For anybody that's interested, there will be available the new rate system. If you would like to have it, we can provide it for you. Is there any questions from the board on Resolution 2015-R-13?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Grow?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Announcement of bids and quotations received. Engineering Department, the Millcreek Sidewalk Accessibility Project, Phase 3. Mr. McGrath?
Well, Rick, you want to take? All right.
Sure. Bids were open at 3 o'clock on May 7th, and they were announced last week, or 2 weeks ago, the Supervisor meeting, May 12th. CDBG, Community Development Block Grant funding from HUD will be used for the project. Erie County, as well as Millcreek engineering staff, has reviewed the bids as submitted. And there were 3. The lowest was Amendola Development, $159,951. Guzik Concrete Masonry at $183,290. And Vavala Concrete Construction to $216,988. We recommend awarding the Millcreek Township Sidewalk Accessibility Project Phase 3 to Amendola Development, the lowest bidder, in the amount of $159,951.
Thank you. Is there any further questions from the board?
I'll move that Amendola be awarded that contract.
I will second.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Grow?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next is from our ID Department, External Battery Pack Rack and Tower. We received 3 quotations for this merchandise. The first was from apc.com for $2,769.90. The second was from buyuptime.com for $2,401.96. And the third was from Government Connection at $2,202. It's a recommendation of our IT manager, Chris Filson, that we award this to Government Connection for $2,202. And that's in the form of a motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Grow?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next is from the Streets Department, the 2015 Bituminous Seal Coat Project. Mr. McGrath?
Okay, bids were opened in Harbor Creek on May 1st, and I'll read them just for conversation. Russell Standard, $23,956.80. This was for 18,400 square yards of seal coating. Suit Coat Corporation submitted a bid of $20,201.36. This was a joint bid with, I believe it was 5 other municipalities, facilitated by Mark Corey and Associates and Harbor Creek Township. We went through the same process last year. Unfortunately, this year, we felt that these bids were higher than we anticipated, and in questioning the contractors, those submitting the bids, as to why they came in higher than we had hoped, they said that PennDOT has recently required the contractors to do significantly more signage than had typically been the case in the past. And we compared those bids, the 2 that I just read, with what other municipalities had been receiving, and they were higher. In the meantime, we'd had a meeting with PennDOT, and were able to convince PennDOT that this was going to be costing local municipalities, the ones who participated, significantly more money, and they went back to the drawing board on their requirements as far as signage goes, have changed some of those requirements, and in doing so, we feel that in our best interest, we should go out for bid again, which we did, and those bids will be opened on May 28th. So in the meantime, I would make a motion that both of the bids that were submitted from Russell Standard and Suit Coat be rejected, and then in the next few weeks, in the coming weeks, we'll be able to hopefully vote on the newly submitted bids.
Okay.
So my motion is to reject those 2 bids.
Okay, and I will second that rejection.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Grow?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next is operation financing for new vehicles. Mr. McGrath?
Have a memo from Bill Hitchcock, our operations manager, in regard to purchasing, lease purchasing, several vehicles that are in this year's budget. In doing so, we felt that the best way to handle the financing would be through getting quotes on just what those financing costs would be. Bill did that, and I have those quotes. Acceptance Lease gave us a quote of 2.440% interest rate, Univest 3.557%, and Susquehanna Bank 3.902%. These banks are all, or these financing companies all handle heavy equipment. That's why we went, or that's why Bill went to those companies looking for quotes. Overall, the cost of the lease through Acceptance Lease would cost $12,808.14, Univest $18,009.64, and Susquehanna Bank $20,622.64. That's over a 2-year period, and it's Bill's recommendation, and I will make the motion that the lease agreement, the financing for the lease would be with Acceptance Lease for, like I say, a total of $12,808.14. What we're doing is we are financing $335,622.36 over two years. So that's my motion.
I'll second that.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Grow?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next is from HR, employee vaccinations. It was been recommended by our HR director that employees in the township be afforded the opportunity to receive both the hepatitis B and tetanus vaccines. These are routinely given, however, sometimes they do expire. And we've hired a lot of employees since we have afforded the opportunity to get these vaccines again. So we went out for quotes on the cost of this, and we received 3. The first was from Millcreek Community Hospital. The hepatitis B shots, there was 59 people that signed up for them. The hepatitis B were 120, the series, it's actually a series of 3 shots. The price quoted was $123.39 for the hepatitis B and $47.03 for the tetanus, for a total of $10,995.38. Second was from U.S. HealthWorks. The same criteria. The hepatitis B was $195 per person, and the tetanus was $60, for a total of $16,245. The third quote was from St. Vincent's Occupational Health. Again, same criteria. The unit price for the hepatitis B was $255, and the unit price for the tetanus was $61, for a total of $19,864. Once again, we were having 59 hepatitis B and 79 individuals signed up for the tetanus vaccine. And it's the recommendation of HR that we go with Millcreek Community Hospital for $10,995.38, and that's in the form of a motion.
I'll second that.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Grow?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next is a licensing agreement with the Cafaro Management Company for recycling presentation at the Millcreek Mall. Basically what this is it's an agreement, licensing agreement with the mall and the Cafaro Company that allows us to put on a promotion for recycling programs for children and their families during Widget Wednesday at the Widgets Kids Zone from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. There is no cost to this. It's just that the Cafaro Company mandates that any group that comes in like this sign a license agreement when they afford them the opportunity and the space to do this. So I would make a motion that we approve this licensing agreement and authorize myself as the secretary to sign it. That's in the form of a motion.
Oh, okay. I'll second that.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next, we have a stormwater maintenance agreement request for Whispering Woods Estates subdivision number 7A, Special Properties Incorporated developer. Mr. Morris?
This is a Phase 7A that was approved earlier in the meeting. The stormwater management maintenance agreement is on the township-approved form, and the developer will be responsible for all the maintenance and the ownership of it. So we recommend approval of the agreement.
Is there any questions from the board?
None for me, no.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll move to approve that stormwater maintenance agreement
I'll second
for
it.
7A.
Mr. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Okay.
Next is the request for a proposed ordinance. Shall a government study commission of 7 members be elected to study the existing form of government of Millcreek Township, Erie County, Pennsylvania, to consider the advisability of the adoption of a home rule charter, and if advisable, to draft and recommend a whole room charter? Mr. Grow.
Yes, this is be the first step, the initial step of possibly, and I say possibly, putting a question on the ballot for this November 3rd election, in which a study commission may be formed to study the possibility of a home rule charter for Millcreek Township. This right here is just the initial phase of getting the directive to the solicitor to draft the ordinance, including that question, and also to do the proper advertising. That's all this action is about, is that. No other action is part of this right here.
John, however, if the solicitor is directed to draft the ordinance and then the ordinance is approved, it would go on the ballot.
That's correct, yes, that is correct. But this is just the initial part of directing the solicitor to draft the ordinance. We're looking at June 23rd of possibly the date, not possibly, the date of enactment, if it does go that far to enact it. So it's really contingent on how this goes tonight as far as if there will be a second. I will make a motion to direct the solicitor to draft such ordinance. I'm looking for a second on that, and we'll see what happens from there.
Okay, there's a motion on the requested action. Is there a second? Hearing none, I will second it. Mr. Groh?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Could we have just brief discussion before we vote?
Sure.
And I'm not going to belabor this because I realize that this is going to pass, but out of respect, I believe, for the study commission that was in place in 2011, they issued their report less than 3 years ago in 2012. I have just a very brief statement I wanted to make here. That ballot question in 2011 read, "Shall a government study commission," and I'm quoting, "be elected to consider an optional form of government and whether an optional plan of government should be adopted?" This proposed ordinance is less broad and is specific to the Home Rule Charter, but in essence is repeating the process completed less than 3 years ago. The study commission elected by the voters in 2011 compiled a detailed report, presenting the report to the public on August 28, 2012. The report by the commission, which has been on our website ever since, stated that the current form of government, and I quote, "offers the most flexibility for current needs as well as provides for the flexibility to meet future needs." The report went on to state, if voters wanted a system in place where the supervisors acted only as supervisors and desired a manager, they can simply follow the second-class code and add 2 additional supervisors who share that view. The voters decide. Then there would be 5 supervisors to make the final decision whether to employ a manager. End of quote. Last week's primary election was a perfect example of this process. 2 of the candidates for supervisors used that issue in their campaigns. They stated that if elected, they would not be employed by the township. 2 of the candidates stated that they believe the current system works well and would not change it. The latter 2 candidates were selected by the voters to face off in November. The 2012 report stressed that, and again I quote, "the study commission has found and firmly believes that the system or form of government is less important than who runs the government." End of quote. The commission went on to state, and again I quote, "the closer you keep the leaders of government to the voters, the better." I understand that the proposed ordinance will eventually be approved by my colleagues. I also have no doubt that this will again become an attraction for the media and a distraction for those charged with the operation of our township. And again, I said I'm not going to belabor this, so I won't.
Okay.
John?
This is just the first part, and this is really just a question. And I say it in a very simplistic form. It is just a question. Are the voters satisfied with what happened the last time? Let's keep in mind this is a different type of question where we're talking about Home Rule Charter. There are 3 different questions that can be asked under the Home Rule law. This is question number 2, and you know, it's really going to be up to the voters to decide if they want to answer yes to the question. That's all this is about. It's not us changing it. And I will say this: I disagree with the word from the study commission that said that it's more important of who is in government than how the government is. The government is not about the 3 of us. The government is about the 53,000 residents of Millcreek. It is their decision to do it. Yes, we could bring in a manager right now. That could happen, but that's not the wish of the voters. We want to know what their thoughts are. And Brian, I will more than likely say there are probably maybe 1/3 of the voters out there that like things the way they are. So you probably have a point there. But the fact is, we need to do this study to find out who really does like it the way it is. Let's look at the challenges this township faces here. You know, we look at what's going on with our roads infrastructure. We look at the fire departments, what's happening there. This is really an important matter for Millcreek Township residents. And no, the sky is not falling, folks. It is something that we need to do as leaders of this township, to do the right thing, to hold the mirror up to our face and say, boy, I got a lot of wrinkles. Maybe I need to do something. Maybe we need to do something with our township and say, hey, maybe we need to change this, to tweak this. And that's one of the things about the Home Rule Charter, is that we can tweak that to fit our needs here for our township. We can custom fit it. That will be for the study commission to determine and make a recommendation back to the voters for the voters to ultimately decide on it. Folks, this is one of the rare examples where you will have a voice in it other than electing the people that serve in this position up here. So you know, it's up to you, whatever you want to do. You know, we'll probably, because I think Rick said you would second my action, my request. So it looks like we'll at least get the ordinance drafted for action at the meeting in June and see where it goes from there. If you don't like the question, answer no. But I will suggest that you still select people to serve on that study commission. Just because if you may answer no, it doesn't invalidate you from voting on the study commission members. So exercise your right as an American. Vote yes or vote no. Vote either way you want to, and then also vote for the members of the study commission. That's all I got to say. I'm not going to belabor it too. Thank you.
I think one of the problems I had, although I didn't voice it too much, because 2 years ago when we did this before, was the fact that, yes, there was a government study commission. Yes, they came out with a report, but they made no recommendation to put on a ballot so that the people could decide whether they agreed with them or didn't agree with them. I think it's important that whatever happens with this, whether it be denied or whether it be approved in the long run, that finding should be in front of the people. They should have the option to say, we agree with that, or we disagree with that. It's their township, and I believe they have that right, and they should be given that opportunity.
I'm confused, because the last study commission did publish their findings. If this study okay, no, it didn't go for a vote because the study commission recommended against the change.
That's right.
Now we have another study commission, but if this study commission comes back and says that they don't propose a change, then the same thing happens. It doesn't go for a vote again.
Well,
the only way it goes for a vote is if they recommend a change.
They didn't not recommend a change. They said that we could, if we saw it, we could make that change. We could actually hire a township manager. We could actually employ 5 supervisors or have 5 supervisors. I think when we're talking something this big in the scheme of this township, that's not a question that should be answered by only the 3 of us.
That's right.
I think there's 53,000 people out there who have a stake in this, and they are the ones that should be answering this question. But the final results of that government study commission were that, you know, we think it's okay, but you guys can change it if you want. And that, I don't think that's the way it should have been done.
Actually, the legislators in this case were pretty smart the way they did the way they put together the second-class township code, because in essence the voters do have the ability to determine right now if they want to change the form of government by electing those candidates who run on that. And we just had an election, and 2 of the candidates, as I said that they're in favor of changing the form of government. And if the electorate out there said, well, geez, we agree with you, I'm going to vote for you, then that gets one of the supervisors in there that believes in changing the form of government. And then 2 years later, you get another one in there. And then they're going to change the form of government. But that didn't happen. The electorate said, no, we don't want those 2 guys that said we want to change the form of government. we're going to elect, or we're going to vote for the two guys who said keep it the way it is. So, like I said, the second-class township code is written pretty well, that it can change. It's going to take a couple of years, but it can change if the voters want it.
Well, and I go back to this, Brian, when I brought this up in 2011, and I don't want to belabor this, but
Too
when we
late.
looked, yeah, too late, we're doing it. I recall that when this Government Study Commission was put into place, we gave them certain information. One of those pieces of information was that if you took the top 25 townships in the state of Pennsylvania by population, which Millcreek is, one of those top 25 townships, that those 25 townships, 24 of them have gone to a township manager form of government, and one hasn't, and that's us. So I question myself by saying, are we the only ones doing it right, or are we the last ones to get on the bus?
We're the trendsetters.
Well, I don't know, we've been doing it this way. I think you said it when I brought it up 2 years ago. We've been doing it the same way for 208 years. Why do you want to change it? You know,
Yeah. You know, like I said, I don't want to belabor this thing either here. I know these kids want to get out of here too, you know? No, you got to stay here. But seriously, this is just a question. It's an important question. This is the first step of determining and deciding if we really need to change. And, you know, if a study commission is selected, say the question is approved, study commission is selected, and say they recommend no change at all, what is the harm in doing that? At least we have an assessment of where we're at. They're going to study us. They're going to study how we operate, the procedures and how we do things, and maybe they'll come up with a different recommendation. Maybe they won't say change, you know, a radical change under, you know, home rule charter. Maybe they'll just recommend maybe 5 supervisors, and then we can split up the work 5 ways. Who knows how it's going to be? But one thing about it, it's going to have the residents' involvement in it, and that is what's important here. You know, it's not a matter that that the 3 of us can decide. Our responsibility in this thing ends when we approve an ordinance to put the question on the ballot. I think that's all we have in this matter. And I think it would show leadership on our part if we were to do that. And so I can't beg, and I'm not going to. I'm committed on this, and I think we need to ask that question. There's nothing wrong with asking that question.
But are we
it's
going to
not that uncomfortable of a question to
Are we
ask.
going to continue to ask that question until we get a different answer?
No, no. This is just, this is one time.
We just did this, and now we're
Well,
doing it again.
I know, yeah. Yeah, we're gonna do it now, so
okay,
That's the way
is there any other discussion?
I'm done.
Okay, there's a motion, there's a second, there's been discussion. Mr. Grow?
Yes,
Mr. McGrath?
No.
And I vote yes.
okay.
Evan, just a quick question. It seems like a fairly simple ordinance. Think we can get this done by, and advertised at least by the end of the week?
By the end of this week?
Not
By the end of this week?
just get it into the paper?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about June 26th or whatever date you're,
23rd,
What is
whatever
it,
the-
10 days?
well,
we have
you
to-
have to have
I think it's
10,
10
7 days, actually.
Oh, 7 is all?
Yeah.
Okay, well, then you don't have to hurry.
Thank you.
We'll give it till next week.
Okay, moving on. Communications. Jerry?
I don't have anything.
Mr. McGrath?
I have a couple of things. First, from Pam Fitzpatrick in the Streets Department, in regard to the installation of guide rail. This is for West 15th Street. Received a quote from Shingle Decker Welding for $1,560. From Green Acres Contracting, $3,531.25, and those were the only quotes that Pam was able to secure. And I would move that Shingle Decker be awarded that contract for $1,560.
I'll second that.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Grow?
Yes,
And I vote yes.
We have not too many, so I'll read them. This would be for seasonal employees for the summer session for the Parks and Rec Department. John Dill, part-time maintenance, $7.65. Gary Obawanik, part-time maintenance, $10. Danielle Peets at the Millcreek Golf and Learning Center for $7.65. Mitch Molnar at the Millcreek Golf and Learning Center, $7.65. Beth Servideo, a lifeguard, for $8.45. And Abigail Krzyzewski, a lifeguard at Chestnut Hill, for $7.65. And I'll move approval of those employees.
Okay, I'll second those.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Grow?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
And I have to make mention that recently, and there was a big windstorm, a couple of weeks ago, I guess it was, and a tree at Lakewood Park fell, a big tree, and fell on someone's car. So it was suggested by our insurance company that all those trees be examined in Lakewood Park. We have a fellow that we use internally for, he's an arborist, and we use him to let us know what trees should be taken down and what don't. If you've ever attended or seen a meeting, I do that kind of frequently, bringing up removal of certain trees. Anyway, our arborist went down and took a look at the trees at Lakewood Park and made a recommendation that many of those trees are or have reached the end of their lifespan and need to be removed. Since it would be a shock to the neighborhood to have a lot of those big, I think most of them are maples, removed, we thought that we would seek a second opinion, which we did. We had 2 state arborists come in and look at the same trees, and they reached the same conclusion, that those trees have a lifespan of about 50 years, and they were probably all planted within a week of each other, and they're all expiring about at the same time. So there are, give or take 1 or 2 trees, about 16 trees at Lakewood Park that need to be removed. So I'm making that known publicly now. We are going to send out notifications to the neighbors, as many as possible, to let them know what's happening. But as was evidenced by the tree falling on the car, those trees have become a problem. And we don't want anyone to get hurt down there. We don't want to see any more property damage. So we are going to have to remove those trees. Yeah. We've already made inquiries about how we can replace those trees, and it is our intention to begin replacing them as soon as possible. So we are going to replant trees. Obviously, they're not going to look anywhere near as nice as the ones did down there when they were healthy, but it's going to take many years for that to happen. But we feel it's in the township's best interest to start removing those trees ASAP, which is what we're going to do. So I'm just making that known now, because I'm sure there's going to be some people who are upset with the township when they start seeing the trees being removed from Lakewood.
Yeah. You know, I have to wonder if those trees were planted the same time they were at McDowell. Remember, they just had to cut those ones down on 38th Street? Remember
These trees are much larger.
Much larger than that, yeah, because those things had rotted away too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all I have, I'm sorry.
Okay, I have a few things from the police department. Permission for Sergeant Donald Krasinski and Sergeant Timothy Fallon to attend a 2-day training titled Child Abuse Investigations on June 9th, 2015 and June 10th, 2015 at the PSP Northwest Training Center in Meadville, PA. There is no registration fee and no travel time compensation or overtime compensation required. And I would move approval for Sergeant Kaczynski and Sergeant Fallon to attend that seminar.
Okay, I'll second that.
Mr. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Second is permission retroactively for Kearsarge Fire Department Fire Police to conduct traffic control at the Erie 15K Freedom Challenge, which took place on May 25th from 7 until 10:30. The walk-run relay began on Route 20 in Fairview Township, headed east, turned south on Millfair, up Heidler, north on Bear Creek, east on 20, and finished on West Ridge Road. The request came to MPD from Fire Chief Ted Duncan. And we have the proper forms to approve that. And I would move that we retroactively approve the use of the fire police in that event.
I'll second that.
Mr. Groh?
Public
Yes.
comment.
Oh, public comment. Public comment? On this?
On this,
Okay. Mr. Groh?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
yes.
And I vote yes. Next is for permission for Westlake Fire Department Fire Police to assist in traffic control at the Edinburgh Triathlon in Edinburgh, PA on May 30th between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. This comes to the Millcreek Police from Fire Chief Richard Shaw, and if approved, the written request is attached for signature, and I would move approval.
I'll second.
Second. Public comment? Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next is for permission for the Kearsarge Fire Department Fire Police to conduct traffic control at the Humane Society Open House, 2407 Zimmerly Road, on June 13th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. This comes from MPD from Fire Chief Ted Duncan, and if approved, the written request is attached for signature, and I would move approval.
I'll second.
Public comment? Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Groh? Yes. And I vote yes. Next is for permission for West Ridge Fire Department Fire Police to conduct traffic control at the Jack Stone 10K Run, the 5K Run, and 1 Mile Run, which will take place on various streets of southwest Millcreek Township on August 30th, 2015, from 8 a.m. till noon. This comes to MPD from Fire Chief James Rosenbaum, and if approved, the written request is attached for signature. The 3 separate route maps are included as well, and I would move approval.
I'll second it.
Public comment? Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Lastly is permission for the Kearsarge Fire Department Fire Police to conduct traffic control at the Lecom 5K Run on August 1st from 8 a.m. to noon. This event begins on West 54th Street in front of the Lecom Medical Fitness and Wellness Center and travels east to include the roadways of West 54th Street, West 52nd Street, and the area of Winchester Heights. This comes from MPD from Fire Chief Ted Duncan, and if approved, the written request is attached for signature, and I would move approval.
I'll second.
Public comment? Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
And I vote yes. And that's all I have.
Just one quick thing. We received quite a few calls here today regarding garbage pickup. Just as a reminder, when there is a holiday during the week, your trash pickup is the following day of your normal pickup day. By the time people see this, they'll be back on the regular swing of things. But just remember that in the future. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Evan.
I have one thing. I recommend that the board retain Robert Glowacki at an hourly rate of $225 to provide consulting assistance regarding the marketing of property at 1330 Kuntz Road, which the township now owns.
Is there a motion to retain Attorney Glowacki?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Public comment? Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Cheryl? Rick?
One thing, Cheryl, on the back of our agenda, it states that we have a meeting on June 9th and June 30th. Is that correct? Do we know? Because John's motion for the ordinance mentions June 23rd.
Yeah. Is it the 23rd that we had the meeting, or is it the 30th? Okay, well then we'll correct it into the, yeah.
Just verify.
Yeah, just verify,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay, Rick, anything? No? Citizens to be heard? Okay, if you'll give us your name and address, and please sign in at the podium.
Michael Simon, 34 Prescott Boulevard. I want to tell you, Ashley's doing a good job for the Parks and Rec. I've been working with her on the ball fields. Also, John, I'd like to see, I went down to Bethel Park, Community Center, and that would be something to have in Millcreek.
A community
They have-
center.
They have the youth in there, they got the older youth, and they got everybody,
Yeah.
track and everything.
Great idea. I agree. Community center for everybody.
Community center,
Right.
I'm going back down in September, so.
Okay.
Also, I like to find out, people have been questioning me, because I always come to the meeting, is these accessible sidewalks, these, you know, the path. Are they gonna be putting sidewalks in afterwards? There's some of them that are not going anywhere.
You're talking about Westlake Road, I'm sure?
Correct.
As far as I know, what you see is what you get. PennDOT, well, everyone, anyone who's doing a construction project, as they are a paving project, is required to put in ramps, and whether there's a sidewalk or not. And PennDOT is having a contractor install ramps even where there are no sidewalks. So I know it looks strange right now, because especially near Westlake School, where there's a piece of sidewalk that just kind of goes back into the bank, and
Yeah.
there's no sidewalk there, but that's the way it is, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Is there anyone else? You give us your name and address, sir, and please sign in at the podium.
Louis Codio, 927 Vista Drive. I got several things to, one question to ask and several things to say. If you're going to put new trees down there, I would recommend that you get trees that are going to last longer than 50 years. There are oak trees and maple trees, hard maple.
Now, Lou, you're not blaming me for those trees, are you?
Well, I'm not blaming you. no.
Okay, all right.
I'm looking at
I've been
all
around a
trees.
long time, but not 50 years.
No, someone else may blame me for that, but
Okay.
I'm not blaming you for it. Yeah, don't be so easily offended, for goodness sake. I don't intend to offend anyone, but I do intend to speak my mind about something. I'm 88 years old, and I was planted a long time ago. So if I can last that long, you ought to be able to find trees that can last that long. I heard all of you, talking about the question on the ballot for recommendation, or recommendation that the voters decide whether or not the form of government we have is the best form of government for us. There are many, many reasons I can think of off the top of my head that another form of government should be considered seriously. One thing that really growls me about the present form of government is that a supervisor is elected by the public, by the voters. But when they get elected as supervisors, they then nominate each other for jobs and become employees of Millcreek Township. Now, I don't know if you know what that means or not, but this is what it means to me. Two of them are appointed roadmasters. Well, there was a time when roadmasters did exist and went out and I suppose it happened in Millcreek at one time. Actually did plowing on the roads and things like that, but the current roadmasters don't do that sort of thing. They have crews in the streets department, they have supervisors in the street department, and they've got plenty of workers to do the job that a roadmaster would normally do. I know you could argue with me about that, but I think the other, so there's two supervisors. What's the other supervisor nominated to do? Can you tell me, is it secretary?
Secretary.
Secretary. Look, there's a secretary right there. Why do we need another secretary who becomes an employee of Millcreek Township? Let the voters decide whether or not that should happen. There are several other things that you need to know. They're not only become employees of Millcreek Township, They get the same benefits as the Millcreek Township employees do, which is okay with me, because that's the way it is now. And I'm not begrudging any of you benefits, you're entitled to benefits. But if you had a single person in charge of daily operations and 4 or 5 supervisors preferably to oversee him or her, you would not have the conflict that we've had in the past 10 years or so since I've been involved in this bill. The other thing that really grounds me, is that because they're employees of Millcreek Township, if they get unelected by the voters, guess what? They get unemployment compensation for being ousted by the voting public. I don't know of any other office in the entire country that has that kind of arrangement. Those are some of the things that I'm sure many of you don't know, but if you want to find out, there's a manual on second-class townships for Pennsylvania that tells you all these things. And I recommend if you don't have one, get one. That's all I have to say, and I'll listen to any responses that you have. Anything I say false?
I have plowed a lot of snow since I've been supervisor.
Pardon me?
I have plowed a lot of snow since I've been supervisor.
Not recently.
Not this year, no, I haven't. No, you're correct.
All right. Anybody else do some plowing?
I don't have a CDL, but I'm going to be working on it.
Pardon me?
I don't have a CDL. I don't have a commercial driver's license, but I plan to work on it. That's one of my goals. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? If you'd please give us your name and address and sign in at the podium.
Sue Weber, 5338 Norris Drive. As most of you know, I sat on the Board of Supervisors for 12 years. And during that time, I read everything I could get my hands on that dealt with road maintenance, and I learned it well. I was appointed to a state board that wrote the curriculum for the road schools, and I taught pavement maintenance, pavement budgeting, management in different parts of the state. Probably 5 years ago, I was in here, and I took the time at that time to go over 5 years worth of roads that the township had paved. And I presented a written report that showed how dismal our road conditions were. At that time, Mr. Kuyava made the excuse that it had to do with the township being forced to use PennDOT's mixed design called SuperPave. Well, after that, I called several paving contractors in our area who said they never had any problems with SuperPave. Then a few weeks ago during the election, the candidates for Millcreek Township Supervisor were on Talk Radio 1400. And somebody, I believe, called in about the condition of our roads, and Mr. Kuyava again said, well, they're sitting down in Harrisburg, and they make us use this SuperPave, and it's colder here in other areas of the state, and we're all forced to use this same thing, and that's not true. PennDOT's SuperPave mix design is adjusted for the temperatures in varying regions. And I can just tell you from what I've seen, watching roads be paved in Millcreek Township, the problem is the surfaces aren't prepared correctly, the asphalt mix design is wrong, and in that regard, you don't have a pavement maintenance system. And I'll close by saying Arbuckle Road was paved 2 years ago. Mr. Groh, you were not a roadmaster, you're not here then. I'm not directing this to you. It's right near my house. You go over that road and look at it, and it's full of cracks already. And I'll bet you it'll go all summer and it will never be crack sealed, just like when your roof is leaking on your house. If you don't do something about it, then pretty soon your ceilings cave in. It needs crack sealed. It needs to be put, again, I'm just so frustrated. We have maybe 218 miles of local roads in our system, and you can't go over any street in this township barely and not see that it's deteriorating. And that, to me, is a very frightening thing. You go over to Harbor Creek Township and you look at Wallbridge Road. I looked at that years ago when I came in here. And you take it from Iroquois Avenue down to Route 5, and that's a highly trafficked road. It was paved by the township. I went over it again after this winter, and there's finally one crack in that whole stretch. And let me tell you, it takes a lot more traffic than Arbuckle Road. Something is drastically wrong here, and you have to do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sue, just wanted to address a couple of things quickly, and I won't even address it. I'll just look at our engineer. Rick, we were at a meeting last week with Bill Pettit from PennDOT. What do you say about Superpave?
We are nearing changes that are going to reflect what we always used previously before Superpave, which are which have been called Marshall Mixed Designs. So in other words, we're trying to get back to where we were. And if anyone drives any of the state highways, and I do quite a few, you can see that this pavement is not as durable as what we used to have, and it's in poor condition after a few years. There is definitely something wrong with the mixes that we're using.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
I will say this too. When I was in here before, the people at PennDOT told me and showed me meeting minutes they had. They came in here and they tested the asphalt that was being made and put down on the roads from Millcreek's asphalt plant. They couldn't get it to mat. It wouldn't mat and it wouldn't stick. And here we had been paving roads with that. They shut the plant down and they said, until you can figure this out, you're not going to operate your plant again. There have been problems all along with Millcreek's asphalt plant and its road program. This is serious. There needs to be a professional public works director hired who knows what they're doing before our whole infrastructure just crumbles. It is very depressing.
Okay, to that comment, Sue, several years ago, we hired a well-respected asphalt plant technician who has been doing a very good job for us. And as a matter of fact, every year for the past, I don't know, 6 or 7 years probably, our mixed design has been submitted to PennDOT, who approves the mixed design every year, or else we're not allowed to use liquid fuels money. So
I
PennDOT
realize that.
it not only meets the specs, but we have to submit the tests to PennDOT, who has to approve it.
I realize that, but when they came here, they found you were mixing it wrong when they did a spot check, and I've got the minutes to prove that.
And we've changed it since then.
You
so.
need a professional public works director who knows what they're doing. You don't have one, and you're in dire trouble with your infrastructure.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, sir. If you give us your name and address, sir, and please sign in at the podium.
My name is Tom Osiki. I live at 2912 Loveland Avenue. I'm also the president of CECOM, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. We can either be a friend or a foe, as you well know as well. In the case of this ordinance, we couldn't agree more. And you have our complete, total support to do whatever we can to help get this to be a decision of the people of Millcreek. I agree with Rick Vigaski 150%. The last time this came up, the Official Government Study Commission came up with a 275-page report. We anticipated that report. We did our own study, which was a 23-page report. The people never saw our report because by the rules, if you didn't change the form of government, then there was no need to put it to a vote, as Rick had said, which is a total, complete disservice to the citizens of Millcreek. What
That's
should
the
have
rules.
happened,
But that's the rules.
that's the rule. I don't have to agree with it, Brian. It
No.
stinks.
But we have to abide by it.
Well, I don't.
Okay.
What should have happened, there should have been a debate. There should have been, when we saw that report, I mean, there were sections of that final report from the study commission that if we had the opportunity to debate it, we'd have buried it. No one would have wanted us to have that debate because we would have buried it. Right? So what I'm proposing this time, let's That's past history. What I'm proposing this time is that what we are going to do, I'm not looking for approval. I'm just saying, this is what we're going to do. I think it's extremely important. If we're going to put it up to a vote for the citizens, they're going to vote for whether you're going to have a study commission. They have to know more detail about who they're going to put on that commission, what that commission's responsibilities are, and what are the possible outcomes of that. They need to be educated. CECOM is in a position to do that. We ran a pretty successful forum with the candidate vetting. And we're prepared to do it again, and we're going to do it on this issue. So what I'm saying is we're going to sponsor some forums. And I want people pro and con to changing the form of government, although I have to apologize. When I read that, I don't think that's even an issue. I think it's just changing or looking at the home charter. Is there an opportunity in there for them to recommend changing the form of government?
Tom, John, maybe you know more about it. The Home Rule Charter allows us to construct a government, how should I say this, the way we would like to see it, the way the people would like to see it. And I believe under the Home Rule option, the study commission, if they recommend a change, they would also partake in writing up the Home Rule Charter. So, again, my feeling is that something like this needs to be before the people. I mean, they need to make these decisions.
Am I correct in remembering right that that was not an option? The Home Rule Charter was not an option?
No, it was an option. They studied, the study commission studied optional forms of government.
Right.
And the Home
Rule or not, there was only 4 options they could study, Brian. The Home Rule was not something they could study.
Okay, but Home Rule is, let's say it's a theory. It's a very flexible way, like you stated, it's a very flexible way for the governments to determine how they're going to operate. The forms of government that were studied were anything from a mayor to a council. There were lots of things in between. Home Rule can be any of those things. It could be a mayor, it could be 11 council people and a manager. Home Rule could be just about anything you can imagine, which I think is what took the county so long when, remember 1978, the county approved Home Rule, and then that study commission, who I think Evan Judy was on that, and there was a bunch of people on that, then they draw up the rules. They draw up the charter. And it's a very lengthy, involved process.
If I remember the presentation made by the state fellow when he was instructing the study commission, he specifically said that the Home Rule Charter was not in their option.
However, what I was, and maybe I misspoke, but what I was trying to state is the options available to that study commission were quite broad. Home Rule includes all of those options. So you can do just, like Rick said, do just about anything that study commission develops. But I just want to touch on one thing real quick, and here we are belaboring it again. Tom, you said that people didn't get a chance to see the results of that report. But like I said earlier, it's been on our website for darn near 3 years now. So anybody who wanted to see it, it's there.
I think, Brian, what he was talking about was CECOM's report. I might be wrong.
Well, both, but not just that. Brian, you know that just because you put something on a website doesn't mean people take a look at it. I'll bet 9 out of 10 Millcreek citizens never even, in fact, if it's a 275-page report, who the hell is going to take time to read that?
I agree
That's
with you.
why CECOM's report was 23 pages.
Besides Gary Bear.
That most people did not look at it.
Yeah. And
but
yet that proposal in the beginning was overwhelmingly approved by the citizens of Millcreek to have the government study commission.
Well, just
So
because
they
you vote.
overwhelmingly approved it,
Well, like John
but
said,
in the
though-
end, they don't know what happened.
But like John
If
said,
you
though,
want
it's
to
a
go out
commission.
and
It's a
interview people
question.
today, they have no idea what happened.
Yeah.
So,
I can't argue with you
I
there.
support what you're trying to do, not you, but what these two guys are trying to do right now. We support it 150%, and we'll do whatever we can to help educate the citizens when this comes up to a vote, if it comes up to a vote.
You can lead a horse to water, Tom, but
That's right.
it's tough to make them read a report.
That's right.
Especially if it's 275
Well,
pages long.
If I could add something here, and Tom, what you were talking about was the report that CCOM that we came up with. Of course, I was involved with CCOM at that time. I wasn't in the final stages of that, but it's called a minority report. And the same thing could happen this time. In theory, if the study commission is voted yes, and they select the commission members, and they come up with a report, anybody who has a different view on that there can come up with what's called a minority report. And they
We
just
could have 300 minority
you
reports.
could, you theoretically could have that, and that's one of the great things about this process. You get to hear different opinions on it, and I think that's what's important about it. I'm not going to say it, but I'll say it one more time. It's a chance for the voters to really make an impact on how Millcreek Township is going to be governed in the future.
Would you agree, John, that they need to be educated?
Yes, that's one of the things that'll be happening here too. And whatever you want to do, Tom, that's fine.
Okay, I just wanted to say.
Yeah, we'll be doing some things
I know
here.
at times I can be your enemy, but
I
I
know.
just want to let you know that I'm your friend.
Okay.
I think last time, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think last time we had all the candidates on TV, didn't we?
Channel 12 did that. The study commission members, the candidates were on there.
Well, didn't we run it on our channel too?
We may have.
I think they did like little bios.
Yeah.
And we had them on, so the voters had a chance to at least know who the candidates were.
Yeah. That's right.
Brian, I don't even want to chat.
Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Is there anyone else? Hearing none.
No, she's leaving.
She's boogie.
Are you sneaking out?
She's sneaking out on us.
Who's your teacher?
Now you're on TV. Quick, swing the camera.
Okay,
You looking for a motion?
if there's no,
It's like,
if there's no one else to be heard, is there a motion for adjournment?
so moved.
We're adjourned at 8:07.
You're watching the Millcreek Government Channel, powered by WQLN Public Media.